I am really all about building relationships. And that's how I think AI has helped me become a better salesperson because I'm finding that information quicker on these target accounts that I'm looking to work with. And then I'm making meaningful connections with them. And then when you talk about authenticity, that's what I hear from the people that I reach out to on LinkedIn. They they even say like, now this is the way you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. I feel like now with how AI is going, there's so much content out there. There's so much information. So the more that we can tap into our authentic selves with using AI for those things that we don't want to be doing, like the research side, but then the connection, using your human abilities to do that. That's what us salespeople are really good at, is building relationships, spending more time there. That's what kind I envision for the future of marketing and sales.
Mike's got the hat, the AI kind. Unlocking power in business you'll find. Cut through the hype, explore the tech. Every week, new ideas to check. All 10 leads us on a digital quest. AI secrets he'll always invest. Tune in tight, don't miss a beat. Knowledge groove, keep you on your feet. Listen up to the AI flow. Business growth, here we go. Cutting edge insights, that's the plan. With the AI hat, you'll understand.
Greetings, program. Welcome back to the AI Hat podcast, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at keeping up with and integrating or layering artificial intelligence into social media, content, advertising, search, and other areas of business and marketing. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to be shown to prepare yourself and your brand for this AI revolution and come out ahead. Now, listen, have you ever felt like you're caught between authentic and leveraging technology? Like there's this constant push pull between staying true to yourself and keeping up with the latest AI tools. Well, you're not alone. In today's high pressure sales and marketing environment, it can feel impossible to maintain your genuine voice while also embracing artificial intelligence. Many professionals worry that implementing AI will make their approach feel robotic or impersonal. But what if there was a way to use AI to actually amplify your authenticity instead of diminishing it? What if technology could help you be more genuine, not less? Well, that's exactly what our guest today has mastered, and she's here to show us how. I am thrilled to welcome Tamra Moroski from the Marketing AI Institute. As a pioneering force in the integration of mindful leadership and AI-powered sales, Tamra's revolutionized how we think about authentic business relationships in the digital age. She's trained her AI on her own journal entries, created immersive AI-generated mindfulness experiences, and developed innovative sales test strategies that combine human intuition with artificial intelligence. Some of her groundbreaking work includes creating custom AI personas for targeting CMOs at major tech companies, and she's known for helping professionals maintain their authentic voice while leveraging powerful AI tools. Hey, Tamra, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so super excited.
I can't wait to dig into this with you. I'm a huge fan of you and your work and the
Yeah.
Institute, so this is exciting for me. Let's start with your journey. It's fascinating. How did you
Yeah.
discover that AI could actually, what I was talking about before, enhance authenticity rather than diminish it?
So I think there's first something to say around this, the word authenticity, and even just leaning into knowing who you are and what you stand for first, before even then layering on the AI. So really leaning into that humanness and getting to know yourself, getting to know your values, and then using AI in a way that feels good, not just what everybody else is doing or what everybody is saying. Just so much information out there. So I started honestly, I started playing with ChatGPT. I realized the content that I was receiving for, even if it was a sales outreach or a sales strategy maybe I was looking to, but more I was testing it around content on LinkedIn and content that I wanted to get in front of people. It was just super robotic, right? Like you've been there
Right.
where I can now, oh, it's so, I can look at LinkedIn posts and be like, oh, that's AI. It, the M dashes everywhere and different word usages. You can just tell it's completely written by ChatGPT or another AI tool. So I realized that, okay, how can I make it sound more like me? And also, I was also figuring out what that voice was. I don't know if we're going to talk about this, but I'm a yoga teacher and I'm also in AI. I'm in sales in AI.
Yep.
I talk to all these tech leaders. So that intersection, I'm like, I was going through a really hard time. How do I even make what is this? Like there what is the intersection? Where how am I going to be able to do I have to choose a side here? How I love innovation in tech, but I also love this human side. So really it was almost like an internal thing going on with me where I needed to figure out myself and what my views are, like I said, leaning into that yourself first, but then using ChatGPT to figure out what is your voice? And I started feeding it, like you said, some of my and this is I'm Paul probably my boss, our CEO, he's probably like, oh my God, Tamara, I can't believe you did that. But I actually took pictures of, of my journal for the past 3 years because I wanted it to understand where I was coming from, the struggles that I've been through. I wanted to understand my own voice, my unique voice. I wanted it to, and then that's when I created the custom GPT. So I also layering in on that. I read a lot of books, and I have different thought leaders that I really love their compassionate perspective, and that part of me really wanted to come forward. So sometimes I would add in there like some of the teachings that I've learned through my own reading of books or views or philosophy or whatever it might be. And it honestly just evolved from that. So it was I kept testing this custom GPT to like, does this really sound like me? Most of the time it's almost there. Or I'll feed it my thoughts basically of this is what I'm thinking about for a post or some sort of content and see what comes back. But then I end up always changing it to even just deeper reflect who I am and what my voice is. So it is that constant editing and reiterating. Sometimes you could take a chat or a custom GPT even too far where maybe you're training it way overtraining it. I've done that before where I'm like, no, I wish I would have not done that and go back, you know? So like documenting those processes, how you are training it, I think is super important. But yeah, it just evolved and now I feel like I'm in a good place to where at least it's this like my brand expert or a consultant that I can say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I wanna do." And it is not just this kind of surface level response to me.
Well, okay, so first, just to clarify, Paul
Yes,
is the Paul Racer that we talk about on the
yes,
show all the time. Paul and Mike have the artificial intelligence show. I reference that constantly because one of the things that I've said before on this show, we don't tend to talk about news and technology developments in the AI space because
right.
I want this show to be more strategic and tactical, how to use
Sure.
the tools and that sort of thing. We don't talk about the latest version of OpenAI unless it's like breaking stuff that slips through. That's what I lean on Paul and Mike's The Artificial Intelligence Show format to do. We had Kathy McPhillips on the show just a few episodes ago. So we're great fans of the work you guys are doing there. But I love this tension that you're
Yeah.
talking about, and I don't remember who mentioned it. I don't know if I was listening to Ethan Mollick or somebody else who's, very much integral in the development of AI, bemoaning the word artificial
Mm,
in the AI phrase because it
wow.
automatically makes us as humans think it's fake. It's not
Fake.
real. It can't possibly be me. It is artificial, which has all that context and meaning layered onto it. If we'd have just come up with a different word, he argued,
Right.
it might
Wow.
have been easier for us to wrap our brains around how it can still exist alongside us, right? While we're doing our normal things. And I loved your example of feeding it journal entries. I've not done that. I don't journal in that way, but I fed GPT blog posts.
Yeah,
I've argued other people, feed it emails or anything else that can give it that sense of who you are, the style that you like to write in. I went through an exercise, and I'm going to document this in a podcast episode where I used several blog posts. It was probably 5 to 10 blog articles that I'd written, and I write a lot. So these weren't 500 word articles. These were like 2,500, 3,000 word articles, meaty pieces. Fed them
yeah.
all into ChatGPT and asked it to describe back to me what's my voice and style, and it
Mm.
freaking nailed it. It
Oh,
was
I love that.
amazing. It talked about how I boil really complex topics into simple instructions or metaphors and analogies. I love to use historical references or science fiction references. I'm like, yep, that is me. Absolutely tell you how this relates to the Battle of Waterloo and why you should care. Happy to do that for folks. But talk to me about your experience with using journal entries. How did you see that impacting or improving your content creation from that point forward?
Well, so I there well, at the time that I was doing that even, like I said, I was trying to figure out myself. So I have
Yeah.
always written around what I was experiencing, but then also things that were helping me. So that process is almost like for me, it was taking everything that I've ever because I wanted to help people. I know that I'm here to help people. So I wanted to understand, okay, what was the problem that I was up against? When were like even the timeline of my life of like when I was experiencing something and what were the tools that I was using to help myself? So there was a lot there, but it really was just almost very simple. Not, you don't, I feel like that was even over engineering it because even if I could even take like you did with some of your latest work, I think that in itself, it is really great at picking up your voice. And I think that the journal entries are a little bit more deeper. I'm just a very deep person. And I was almost just going through this thing where it's like, I wanna see how far I can take the tool. Will it actually understand? Or another idea I had was creating a GPT to actually help other people with the things that helped me. I wanted to so people could prompt it and with an experience that they're going through, and based off of my own experience, it could help them guide them through that. So almost like a a a, a guide or a coach type thing. So my brain was all over the place and I wasn't sure how I really wanted this to come to life. But then the more that I leaned into, okay, I have this really unique perspective that I want to share. I'm not a writer. Um, well, I used to think that I'm not a writer. Now I love writing. I do journal almost every single day, but in my brain, and I'm used to be in marketing, now I'm in sales. And for me, like to write a blog entry, I don't know what the framework should look like or anything. I just go at it. And just having a thing that's smarter than me to be able to like help me guide me through that, I think is so valuable. And bringing that voice, like my authentic, and again, like I said, it's not 100% where I need to go back in and like, oh, I would never really say that. I don't think I actually read it out loud and I'm like, that doesn't sound like me. So I think just using these GPTs very simply by giving it some of your latest content and then refining it, I love the idea of asking it, what is my voice? Even that's that self reflection of like getting to know yourself even deeper, because then you can create more content in that way. I use it a lot for refinement of content. Like I've, I'm all about systems, especially being in sales. My brain, like I said, it's somewhat all over the place. So meditation and my mindfulness practices really help me. And just figuring out what does that system look like. So my meditation, I typically will have some sort of insight that I want to share. I'll write it all out in my journal. And then I start thinking, okay, well, how can I use these really deep insights that I really truly believe? How can I turn those into content? Like how can I make that part of my voice? And that's how now I use AI to help bring that to life, whatever those thoughts are, streamlining those thoughts, but then turning it into some sort of content piece.
I'm so glad you shared all of that because it's it's different from the kind of conversations we typically have in this podcast, and I think
Yeah.
larger than that is different from the typical conversations I see people in this industry
Yeah.
having. Is when we're talking with colleagues and professionals, there's fun conversations, sure, but, like, when you go on LinkedIn and other kinds of places, the conversations are about, "What is AI? How's it gonna help us? What tools can I use?
Yeah.
What's the perfect framework for a prompt?" I get asked that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love when I go online because 'cause we're friends and I see you on
Mhm.
Instagram and that sort of thing. I see you bringing so much of these things that you've been talking about today, this mindfulness, not only your own yoga and those kinds of things, but I see you actively helping other people
Yeah.
through the work that you're doing, and I love how you're finding this way to
Yeah.
bring AI into that or to bring you into AI, kinda depends on your point of view
Ye
there.
Right.
Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned, I know you have this sales persona, and
Okay.
I'd love for you to talk about that a little bit and share how that can help more create more authentic connections with prospects while still leveraging AI in these ways that we've been talking about.
So this is something that I've had an idea around. Now, the one that I tested, I have not built this yet, but the I did test one that I want to basically then take what I my current framework and my current process and build my own and kind of like use this as my as version 1, but it's called buyer persona GPT for sales. And another person built this, but I that's the first one that I started with where I'm like, okay, type in the title of the person that I'm looking to target, CMO at, let's just say Jasper.ai because they're one of our partners.
Yeah.
It will give me the whole buying persona pain points that they're up against potentially, what they care about, what are some of the latest product launches that they're looking to market. It really gives you a good foundational understanding of that buyer persona of who I'm trying to reach. You could put in any title, any company, and it will give you that information. Now, think back when we had to do all the research on our own on who we're looking to pitch, right? It's still my process is still a lot because I feel like I have to refine it and figure out the workflow. But there is like that process before was I don't even just doing that research alone could take a really long time. But this is giving me a solid starting point then to jumpstart. Okay, well, this is a really interesting point. How can I where what do I need to go into that? And then maybe so there's another tool. I use Perplexity AI that for I will prompt it, what is the latest news, latest interviews or product releases because so my target audience is AI technology, either they're chief their marketing person or their events person because we have an in-person event. So my perplexity prompt will be, what is the latest interviews, product launches, anything on at jasper.ai. And then it will give me, okay, here's an interview with their CEO on XYZ, links to that interview. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great because then I can watch that and have actually a meaningful conversation or as a talking point with my target person that I'm reaching out to at Jasper. Does that make sense? So, like, instead of just doing kind of your research in this where you can and I do want to step back for a minute because my sales is very one to one, I would say. Trying to scale that, like I am really all about building relationships. And that's how I think AI has helped me become a better salesperson because I'm finding that information quicker on these target accounts that I'm looking to work with and then I'm making meaningful connections with them. And then when you talk about authenticity, that's what I hear from the people that I reach out to on LinkedIn. They they even say like, "Now this is the way you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn." And
Right?
one person used me as an example, and I was like, "What? No way. There's no way." But it really came from an authentic place. I truly reached out to them saying, "Wow, I love this piece of content. Like, would love to talk to you more about this." And it really I feel like now with how AI is going, there's so much content out there. There's so much information. So the more that we can tap into our authentic selves with using AI for those things that we don't want to be doing, like the research side, but then the connection, using your human abilities to do that. That's what us salespeople are really good at is building relationships, spending more time there. That's what kind I envision for the future of marketing and sales. So that's how I've been approaching those. I tested out that, yeah, the sales or buyer persona GPT for sales. That's a great one. I also use a tool called Lavender AI, which I'm a huge fan of their work. The CEO there, as far as any resources on sales, he's my go to. But their tool is trained on millions of data points on sales outreach, what works, what doesn't. And this was really starting off through 3, 4 years ago. This was really my first sales role as far as doing the sales. I used to oversee a sales team, but I did business development, right? But not
Yeah.
in this capacity where I'm doing email outreach and all of this type of different outreach. It wasn't anything like this. So having that coach embedded into my Gmail where he's okay, this email is way too long. 90% of emails are being read on mobile. This needs to be shorter. Like just even having things like that really helped me a lot. So I think there's this kind of time or placement, whether it be the research side for understanding who your buyer is, to then also drafting your emails, but then using that research as an authentic way to reach out, right? And then crafting really, really well thought out emails for your outreach. That way you're spending more time on building relationships. That's how I see sales working with AI.
I love this so much because it really echoes what I'm doing with this podcast. People who've listened to it for a while, they've heard me say, I now use a custom GPT as my showrunner to help me build out each one of these shows. And just like you, that started by using another tool that a friend of mine, Dan Ches, who was one of the early interviewees that I had on the show, he's got a custom GPT called myshowrunner.com that you plug in some details and it helps you build out your podcast. Well, I took that and built upon it and customized
Right.
it and added my own changes and refinements. So now I've got showrunners for this show and the 4 other shows that I have at Agorapulse where I tell it, I'm going to interview Tamra. Here's her LinkedIn. Here's what she'd like to talk to. And it starts spitting back at me. Oh, okay, cool. Well, here's 5 topics that you and Tamra could talk about. Here's 10 title ideas for the show. And I just pick one each step of the way. And then it spits out, great. Here's 10 questions to ask her. Here's an intro. It does all that because I've worked with it, right? And I've
Right.
told it what I like, what I don't like, I've customized it, and that's just a terrific way an example.
Mike, and think about it like how much time did that take you beforehand to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was
Like,
a minimum 2 hours of research for each guest, and now it's 20
right.
minutes. So to your point, now
Right.
I can spend so much more time talking to people, developing the relationships. That's exactly the kind of thing that I think you're talking about from your sales
Right.
GPT perspective. And you also it's funny, you gave me an idea that I actually wrote down while we were talking because I'm now doing a lot more customer interviews for Agorapulse, where I
Yeah.
work full time. And, these are 30 to 60-minute interviews with customers. And I just go in with some basic questions. I want them to share their story, what they're doing on social media, and if they're using Agorapulse, how that's helping. But I'm
Yeah.
not having them fill in a guest form like I do for the podcasts. But I can create a custom GPT that, just
Mhm.
like your example, helps me research them quickly and get a much better sense before I go into the interview who they are, what their company's about. Because yeah, I can go to their homepage and I can read, but most homepages are sales copy,
Right.
understandably, and that may take me a while to understand what the business does, how they're using social media. A tool like ChatGPT or Perplexity is gonna be so much faster for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. There really is. That's the one thing where when I always identify the benefits versus the risks when it comes to AI. And we can this is a huge thing that I've been thinking about lately. But for me, what feels good to me is the how much time I'm getting back. Okay. what I use with that time, that's where there's a bigger conversation, what people use with this extra time that AI could be giving them. But I just think about that around our our brains are meant to be doing single tasks and the word multitasking. I remember when I was applying for jobs out of college, that was like the thing you put on your career
Right?
application,
Your number one
right?
skill is you're a
Yeah.
multitasker.
Yeah, yeah, I can multitask, and I remember being so proud of that because I would then I got into advertising and I was like, "Oh, I could project manage and I can be a creative and I could do all these things." And now I realize, like, that is not how our brains are built to think or be. We're supposed to be doing individual tasks so we can fully focus. And now that's what I've been trying to build. Like, how can I streamline my systems using AI so that way I can spend more time on the things that give me more energy. Like, I love reaching out to people on LinkedIn, even though it is like it is it's still somewhat feeling I don't know how to say it. Like, there's a lot of that masculine kind of sales, like go productivity kind of voice
Yeah.
in LinkedIn. So sometimes I need a break from that, but those authentic connections, those authentic connections, I'd much rather start building connections with people in that way, or going to in-person events or speaking in front of people and helping people in that capacity than trying to like just research my prospect and sending out a million emails and all these things. I truly think about it from the other way around too. Think about the buyer. The buyer, I know I'm getting this. I get all these emails that all sound the same, that
Hmm.
have no authentic voice. They just are this, and I'm like, "Oh my god, right to the trash, right to the trash." So it's like thinking about how the buyer's behavior is changing because of AI. How can you break through that noise? How can you break through just the noise of what those like the frameworks look like? How can you make yourself stand out? How can your frameworks look differently? So there's something there too. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I'll make sure I let you know when I do.
Yeah, it is all about standing out in that sea of sameness. And
Yeah.
I think those of us who have created enough written content, whether it's a journal or a blog or whatever, and already infused enough of our own unique personality into that content, we're at a bit of an advantage. Because, like I said before, I was able to feed a bunch of articles into ChatGPT and it instantly nailed my voice because I have a unique style and a unique
Right.
voice of speaking. And I've honed that over the years because I do consider myself a writer. I've been doing this for over a decade. I know that when I speak, whether it's like formal conversation like this, or we're hanging out at a bar, or I'm writing in an email, or I'm drafting an article, I actually sound the same no matter what. People who meet me after reading my blog content for years, they feel like they know me personally and they feel like they connect with me when they meet me because I sound exactly the same in that writing. So I had that unique style. And when I'm able to feed that into ChatGPT, it nails it, it understands that, and it can almost flawlessly mimic that. Sometimes I actually have to tell it to tone it back a little bit because 'cause I'm like, "I don't always talk about sci-fi. I don't always drop a historical reference in, like, a two-sentence email. It doesn't have to be that, 'Yeah, thanks for circling back on this topic. You are the Jedi Master of Asana.' No, I don't talk like
Oh
that
my
always."
god, that's
Um,
great.
but yeah, there's those opportunities all the time for us to
Right.
bring that humanity in there. Folks, we're talking with Tamara about leveraging AI for sales and marketing while still retaining that human element. And I've got several more questions you're just not going to want to miss. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of AI for Business Leaders, the AI Hat podcast, is brought to you by Magi. Tired of juggling multiple AI subscriptions and trying to figure out which tool to use and when? Magi simplifies AI for businesses by offering access to all the leading language models and image and video generators for one low price. With Magi, you can create custom instructions to personalize AI for every business need and use them across all LLMs, including ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and even DeepSeek. No more building custom GPTs or gems that are limited to just one platform.
Magi also lets you create customized workspaces for your entire team, giving everyone in your organization access to the same AI assistants and tools and prompts. Ready to streamline your AI workflow and empower your team? Tap the link in the show notes to visit Magi today to learn more. And now, back to the rest of today's episode.
So Tamara, you've talked about this combination of mindfulness with artificial intelligence and using it to help sales and marketing. Could you share a story of how that's actually been applied to a successful result when it comes to sales and marketing?
Yeah, sure. So I know we have so much coming at us, so much information about what we should be doing with AI. There's a lot of fear based too, right? So if you don't start, or if you don't start implementing AI, you'll be left behind, or that's a lot of and it's a lot, right? So I remember a specific time when I felt overwhelmed, just completely overwhelmed. And I'm in the AI education space. And I'm just like, I honestly cannot take in any more information. My brain is just not happening anymore. I took a time, it was about a week. I took it away consciously from learning about innovation in tech. And it was almost like I needed that time. I said, "Okay, I'm gonna just stop the learning and growing in this area of my life, and I'm going to focus on my inner growth and my own personal connection." And I woke up in the mornings at 5 a.m. I started taking more like these workshops around personal growth, and it really did help me. I don't know how to say it, but like refine what my future vision is, if that makes sense. Yeah. And just taking that little bit of a break, focusing on my meditation practice in the morning. Because to be honest with you, if I don't meditate every morning, I don't feel grounded. I don't feel I have I have two boys. I'm a single mom. So I'm co-parenting. So having that struggle of shared time, and they have school, they're both in crazy amount of sport. I have a 6-month-old puppy, and he's making my life it's been insane. There's all these things that we have to do, right? But just having that meditation practice and that journaling practice and taking a walk in nature, those grounding techniques, I came back and I didn't take any time off work. I just consciously took a break to learn in that
Yeah.
realm. And I came back and it was almost like the I remember writing down my ABM sales strategy for 2025. I then like it was like insights to me that I had no clue where they were coming. I'm like, "Oh yeah. Okay. This all makes sense to me. Let me put it in ChatGPT, see if I can like reiterate it even more." And it was almost like it's my full blown 2025 sales strategy of how I want to get to over 1 million plus in revenue, what target accounts I want to reach out to, what is my expansion with existing partners, how do I want to upsell them? Like it was full blown. How do I want to use AI in my work, in my actual day to day, in my systems to make my life easier? And I had pieces of those strategies, but they were all kind of like separated out into different documents and everything, and it didn't feel cohesive. So I truly believe it was taking that step back away from all the noise and just grounding myself again and allowing everything that I was learning to integrate into who I was becoming. And then it was almost like this insight just came out of the whole experience. And then, yeah, so now I'm like super clear on what I want to do for 2025. I don't think if I would have kept on going and going without that balance and without that kind of reset, I don't know if I would have been able to put the pieces together the way that I did.
I can't tell you how much what you just said really hits me hard because I'm working
Mm.
full time for Agorapulse. I am running like a rabbit to ramp up what I know about AI and marketing because I want to help myself. This is something I've told people many times. My mission was to, first of all, make sure that I have a future in marketing, I have a future
Right.
career, that I don't get phased out by artificial intelligence. But I also was concerned late 2023, early 2024 for my friends and colleagues in this space, people
Yeah.
like that I've been developing friendships and relationships with for a decade. I knew so many of them were paying any attention to AI because we have to admit, if we've been in marketing for more than 5 or 6 years, we've been burned over and over again by tech trends and things that have come up,
Yeah.
Google Plus and all these things that come up and then they fizzle out and go away, and we feel like, "Oh,
Right.
so much time learning about NFTs or whatever." Of course, this is different. You and I know that, but not everybody else does. And because I am working 7 days a week,
Mhm.
I am constantly listening to podcasts and reading articles and going to webinars and talking to people. Yeah, my brain is like on fire.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
feel myself needing that break. But what I really love is this truth that you've uncovered, which I actually learned in Cleveland at the Content Marketing World event put on by Content Marketing Institute. And the keynote speaker that year was John Cleese. And you listening might recognize his name. Probably if you're younger than me, you don't. But John Cleese was one of the original actors in the troupe Monty Python. And he was a brilliant British comedian in the 70s and 80s. And he did some other films and that sort of thing. And I loved him. I loved Monty Python. And I went to that event thinking, what in the world is John Cleese gonna teach us about
Hmm.
marketing? It seemed very weird to me. I was fine with it because I love John Cleese. I had a front row seat with Chris Penn. And so Chris and I were sitting there, we're listening to John, and he's funny right from the start, calling us marketeers. What is a content marketeer? I remember that's how we started his talk, and right away I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna be funny, but not helpful. But then he starts telling us this story about how he was working with Graham Chapman, one of the other leaders of the troupe, the comedians, and they'd spend all day and all night drafting a script for a skit that they were gonna start working on. And somehow John lost the script. No idea, just misplaced it somehow. And Graham was like out of his mind furious, like would not talk to John at all about this. They'd spent all day working on it. And this was again, you gotta remember this is back in the 70s. This wasn't on a laptop, right? This was handwritten on pages. That's all they had to work with. So they just parted ways and went and stewed. And all night John was just stewing about this and trying to remember it. So he went to sleep, had a fitful night's sleep, woke up the next morning and decided, okay, I'm going to try to recall this script that we worked on from memory. And so
Wow.
he starts drafting it and drafting it and drafting it. And finally he finishes it, puts it all together, gives it to Graham. Graham reads it, and Graham's like, that's better than what we had before. Whatever you did, this
Wow.
is even funnier. This is better. And it started John thinking about how our subconscious goes to work on problems and ideas and inputs when we're not even thinking about it.
When
He
we're
dubbed it
sleeping.
the
Yeah.
tortoise mind, right?
Wow.
So it's this whole presentation, and he wrote a book
Yeah.
on it about
Yeah.
go for a walk, turn your brain off, take 10 minutes and just let it do whatever it has to do, get all that out, and then just sit and think
Right.
and just be at ease with yourself, which I really believe is what you went and did for that whole week,
Yeah.
right? And so that's why you come out of it and now you're ready to go with your 2025
Right.
sales plan without a whole lot of effort
Right.
because
Yeah.
of your tortoise mind.
It came easier to me than me trying to force something together when I'm constantly in this kind of go, go, go mind, right? And it allowed me to just take everything in that I wanted. I knew it in my brain, but like, you're right. It was almost like it was so much easier to get it out onto paper, just taking that little bit of a rest and a reset. So, and that's why the work that I do around this mindfulness and meditation is so important because
Yeah.
we need education around it. Luckily, science is now supporting the benefits of meditation, but it's not becoming as woo-woo or spiritual
Right.
or whatever as before. It's finally becoming to where they can show you brain scans of people who meditate before and after, and you see the effects of that on us. That's what I think about with the rise of AI, the benefits versus the risk. It's like, how can the only thing we have control over is ourselves and how we stay grounded and true to ourselves in this new wild, wild west of AI, how we stay grounded and true, and then how we take those breaks away from our screen, away from our cell phones, and really do connect on a deeper level with ourselves, with our loved ones, with nature, It's going to be so much more important, I think, more important than ever, and potentially more important than learning AI. That's
Yeah.
my true thoughts around that.
I couldn't agree more. It's why I'm looking forward to December 23rd. That's when my girls are off school. They're done with the Nutcracker performances and all that kind of stuff. And we're loading up the car, driving from St. Louis to Southern
Oh,
California,
how
2-day
fun is
road
that gonna
trip,
be?
literally heading to the Wild West. And I know, I mean, there'll be, stops and loud kids and that kind of stuff. But for the predominance of that 28-hour, whatever it is, road trip is going to be me
Yeah.
alone with my thoughts, driving on the roads, enjoying the
Ah,
scenery. Exactly. I know.
I love
I'm
that.
just already looking forward in both ways, just being able
Yeah.
to just sit and be alone with my thoughts. And I love how much you've talked about the need for mindfulness alongside of AI. How do you see this playing out in the near future with sales and marketing, this combination of mindfulness and AI? I know this is an important topic to you. Where do you see us
Mm.
going in the near future?
So, I think about there could be potentially 2 paths, right? The path that I choose to follow and the one that I am really that's super important to me is a path of AI helping us free up time. And I truly think the future of leaders, they're going to be that soul-led leaders where they are deeply connected to themselves, deeply connected to whatever it is. And then when I say spiritual, it's not necessarily like a religion, it's that connection to yourself. And that's why the practices like meditation, mindfulness, that's all what they do is connect deeply to you where so you're using your own intuition to come up with these ideas around your business, or you're using your inner creativity to actually come up with ideas. That humanness is something that I think that we need to hold on to, because what the opposite way could be is we basically use AI to cover to for those purposes, right? To make to for our creativity, I think like that basically the people that have it right, it's going to come alive in themselves. They're going to use AI to help innovate and do all of these amazing things. But what I don't want to see is this future of basically where it's just overtaking our humanness, where we're all just staring down on screens and our teenagers are just connected to, we see this already. So to answer your question, I know that was a roundabout answer. I believe that this connection to oneself, I think we're gonna have deeper understanding of what drives us individually, and then we can use AI to make those ideas come to life. So whether it might be a new business that you wanted to start for the you've been thinking about a business and now you have the ability, entrepreneurs, this is the best time to start a business. Think about that. Or what if corporations, if we can understand where we're at with mental health, for example, if we look at the data behind teenage mental health and how that reflects up to even employees and how their mental health is with burnout culture and isolation pandemic, all of these things, if we can use AI to help solve for that, like that is the future that I want to see. I want to see us coming down potentially to a 4-day work week because of the time that we have back into our lives. That way we can spend it doing things that we love. Like you said, going on more trips, spending it with our families, going outside. That's the future that I hope that we can come to. But I think then that's where the leaders, they need to have a deep understanding of themselves. And that's where the mindfulness and meditation comes into play. So it's almost like this combination of a deeper understanding of ourselves as humans, going towards that, but then also learning these tools on how to enhance our lives in a different way.
This is, I think, the beauty of AI because when used well and appropriately, it does free up so much time, which to your
Right.
earlier point, we can then apply in a lot of different ways. But
Right.
I think the most beautiful, most beneficial way is to apply it to ourselves and to look inwardly and to use that extra time that many of us wish we had, but don't. we're too busy in the rat race of doing whatever it is that we're supposed to do
Right.
every single day. And then by the end of the day, all we can do is flop down in bed, go to sleep, and get up the next morning and start again.
Yeah.
And we
What
don't
kind of
have
life
that
is
time to
that?
be
Yeah.
introspective. Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
So
And
I'd love to know. Well, go ahead. You had another point.
no, I was gonna say I just truly think that the more that we can have these types of conversations too, because when I would talk about this 2 years ago, I would talk to people around this. It was right when AI was starting to now become what it is. People are like, "You're crazy, Tamra. That's wild thinking. That's never going to change." Like asking company leaders to come down to a 4-day work, that's not going to happen. So that's where it's like bringing up these conversations of the well-being. How can we further those conversations? And I see it happening. I see it happening in these corporations are bringing in more mindfulness and wellness into the corporations, into the enterprise level. And it's almost like we're all trying to keep like, how can we harness that? How can we even move it even further? So there's a lot of things that I'm seeing. And that's why I say, like, I do see this future where if it's in the hands of the right leaders who are taking this introspectively and thinking about what good we could bring to us as humanity, I can see a really positive future for us. And I choose to think more down that path a lot, not necessarily in the fear or whatever it might be. I like to learn about all sides of the benefits and the risks and then just educate myself as much as possible.
Love that. In just a couple minutes we have
Yeah.
left, I'd love if you could, this is a perfect segue, share with listeners how they should get started. What's a simple way that our listeners can start integrating more what we would call authentic AI practices into their work
Yeah.
tomorrow?
So there's two things. I want to get back to being in sales, right? I think the first thing that you should do, or marketing, if you're in sales or
Yeah.
marketing, you can check out Jobs GPT and it's by Smarter X. So that's Paul Reitzer, my CEO, his GPT that he created. Put in your role in there and it will actually pinpoint areas of your job that could be helped by AI. So start there. Then you can figure out, like, go through the process of which one you want to tackle first or what areas are quick wins that you can implement AI. And then, like you and I did, create your own GPT with your own authentic voice. Use your old blog post, your LinkedIn post. You don't have to use your journal like I did, but don't go just start building it. And my advice there is not to over engineer it and document what you're doing when you're training it. So document in a separate document what how you're training it, what you're saying for it to do. Because if you do ever go maybe a little bit too far, you can always revert back to a previous version based off of what you're prompting it.
Love it. And I will link in the show notes to a couple podcast episodes that'll help walk you through, those of you listening, how to build a custom GPT if you haven't done that, how to go build your own voice or target audience, which I think are really two almost essential
Yeah.
GPTs for sales and marketers, marketing professionals to have. Tamara, you have been absolutely fabulous. I have so enjoyed this episode. I know everyone listening is going to want to go back and re-listen to it a couple times. But for those who want to reach out, they've got questions for you, they wanna learn how to be as centered, I think, and grounded as you are, or they wanna learn more about Maycon next year. Where can they go to
Yeah.
reach out?
I would reach out to me on LinkedIn. So it's Tamra Moroski on LinkedIn. I also have Instagram, same thing, Tamra Moroski, if you want to connect there. But yeah, feel free to reach out with any questions. I'm always happy to connect and schedule time over Zoom.
Awesome. Thank you, Tamara. We will have all those links in the show notes. That's all we got for today, friends. But if this is your first foray into the world of AI and marketing, remember, I've got that perfect resource for you in the show notes below, that AI marketing primer. It's designed to quickly get you up to speed on the terms, the tactics, and the underlying technology that's powering this AI revolution. Check it out, and I'll see you in our next episode. Welcome to the grid.
That's a wrap on another episode of the AI Hat Podcast. I hope you gained some valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your business with AI. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. And don't forget to visit theaihat.com for more resources and to connect with me. Until next time, keep innovating, and remember, the future of business is human and it's powered by AI.